So, diving into AI and urban planning, huh? This course on using ChatGPT and Open Data sounds right up your alley, especially with your interest in, well, tech for good. What are you hoping to get out of it? Like, are you hoping to learn some cool new tools, or is it more about seeing how AI can tackle real world stuff in urban planning?
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic right now. This course, I think it's on October 22nd, led by Anders Elias. Seems like it's for, let's see, municipal strategists, societal analysts, researchers, basically anyone who wants to figure out how AI can, make a positive impact. I think it's interesting to see the shift from just talking about AI to actually like giving people the tools to use it.
Totally. And speaking of tools, this course is all about ChatGPT. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of designing cities with AI, let's make sure we're on the same page about what ChatGPT actually is.
All right, it's easy to get caught up in all the hype. But at its core, ChatGPT is a large language model, or LLM for short. It's like, imagine feeding a computer program a library, like a huge GE library, and that's basically how it learns to, understand and generate text like we do.
Okay, hold on a sec. What does it even mean for a computer program to understand something?
Mhm.
It's not like it's actually thinking, right?
You've hit on a really important point. ChatGPT, while impressive, isn't thinking in the same way humans do. It's not about, sentience or consciousness or anything like that. It's more about recognizing patterns and making predictions based on tons of data.
So kind of like a superpowered version of those predictive text things on our phones, but instead of just words, it can do whole sentences, paragraphs, even code.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even cooler. ChatGPT has a memory. So it's like having a digital assistant that actually remembers your past conversations and learns from them.
Wow, that's kind of wild, but doesn't that also mean it can learn the wrong things? Or even be manipulated, right?
That's definitely a possibility,
Mm.
which is why understanding its limitations is just as important as, understanding what it's capable of. And that's where this whole probabilistic versus deterministic thing comes in. Think of a calculator, a classic deterministic machine. Input, guaranteed output every single time. But ChatGPT, probabilistic. It relies on probabilities and patterns, so even the same question twice might get you slightly different answers each time.
So it's not like plugging in a formula and knowing the exact outcome. There's an element of, dare I say, creativity to it.
Exactly. Humans excel at abstract thinking, right? Connecting ideas that seem totally random and coming up with those out-of-the-box solutions. AI, at least for now, is better at the precise, repetitive stuff, the thunking, as opposed to thinking.
Fascinating. This course sounds like it's all about bridging that gap, then thinking and thunking, teaching people how to actually use ChatGPT effectively. And the presentation mentioned those different subscription tiers, free, plus, and team. Plus seemed like the way to go for this sort of thing since it gives you access to GPT-4, am I right?
Yeah, GPT-4 is definitely more powerful and better equipped for those complex tasks you'd be tackling in this course. It can handle a lot more information, understand those subtleties better, and generate more sophisticated responses.
But even GPT-4 has its limits. I was reading that as of May 13th of this year, there's a cap of 80 messages every 3 hours on that plus tier. That's not a lot if you're trying to work on like a whole urban planning project.
That's true. That's a valid concern. But the GPT-4 mini model, also on the Plus tier, doesn't have those same usage limits. It might not be as powerful as the full GPT-4, but for many tasks, it's a great alternative.
So there are ways to work around those limitations. Good to know. But, stepping back for a second, this course isn't happening in a vacuum. 2023 was like the year of AI awareness, and now in 2024, it's like everyone and their mother is jumping on the AI bandwagon. It feels like AI is everywhere you look these days. So is this just a ton of hype, or is it really the game changer everyone's saying it is?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest. There's definitely a lot of hype, and it's smart to be a little skeptical.
Mm.
But at the same time, you can't ignore the potential. AI has to completely change things, especially in fields like urban planning.
And that potential is what this course seems to be all about. But before we get too carried away, let's talk about the other side of that, right? That whole AI bubble thing, like all this excitement could lead to, I don't know, unrealistic expectations, and then ultimately everyone's just disappointed.
Absolutely, that's a valid concern. It's healthy to wonder if this super fast adoption of AI is actually sustainable. There was an article in the Washington Post recently that highlighted this exact thing. It argued that AI has tons of promise, but we might be in for a reality check if it doesn't live up to all the hype.
So how do you reconcile those two things? This incredible potential on one hand, but this risk of an AI bubble bursting on the other. What does that mean for someone like you who's about to really go deep on this stuff?
It means you got to go in with your eyes open, ready to think critically, and this course seems to get that. It looks like they're doing a good job of talking about both the amazing things AI can do and the limitations. One thing that really stuck out from the presentation was that AI, at least for now, needs humans to guide it. It's not like some magic solution that'll just solve everything for us.
And that's where that whole prompt engineering thing comes in, right? The presentation really hammered home how important it is to ask the right questions and be super clear with your instructions when you're using tools like ChatGPT.
Exactly. AI is powerful, no doubt, but it still needs someone who knows how to use it. It's like having, I don't know, a professional-grade kitchen, but you don't know how to cook. The results depend on your skills and how well you understand the tools you're working with.
So is this course like culinary school for urban planners who want to master AI?
Huh? I like that analogy.
Oh.
In a way, yeah. The presentation highlighted how the course teaches practical skills. Like you'll learn how to use things like Google Collaboratory, Jupyter Notebook, GitHub, all these tools for working with AI in a hands-on way.
And they'll be using Python, which, full disclosure, I'm not a programmer myself, but it's cool that they're not assuming everyone has a coding background.
For sure. The goal is to help people use AI, not scare them off with a bunch of tech jargon. Speaking of which, let's get into some real-world examples. The presentation had a few interesting ones. One that stuck out to me was HAVE, which, if I'm remembering right, has to do with water levels.
Yeah, have. Sounds pretty technical. Can you break down what a GIS application like that is and why it matters for urban planning?
Sure. So, GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. Basically, it's a way to visualize and analyze data that has a spatial component. Think maps, satellite images, geodata, that kind of thing. HAVE uses GIS to track and analyze water levels, which is obviously super important for urban planning, especially in places near the coast or areas that are prone to flooding.
Makes sense. So where does ChatGPT come into all of this? Is it analyzing the data, generating predictions, or is it something else entirely?
ChatGPT can actually play a few different roles. In this case, it could be used to analyze the data from HAVE and look for patterns or trends in those water levels. That information could then be used to make decisions about infrastructure, like flood defenses or even evacuation plans if needed.
That's a powerful example of AI making a real-world impact. Another example they used was creating a thematic population map. Sounds like they're using ChatGPT and geodata to visualize things like where people are concentrated and how populations are growing.
Exactly. Imagine being able to whip up a map that not only shows you where people live, but also gives you insights into demographics, income levels, access to public transportation. That kind of information is gold for urban planners. It can help them make better decisions about housing, transportation, you name it.
It's like having a crystal ball that shows you the future of the city's population, or at least gives you a good idea. And didn't the presentation also mention something about using AI to analyze wind farm locations?
Yes, the Windkraft-Werk example. That one was really interesting. It showed how ChatGPT could analyze all sorts of data, wind patterns, topographical maps, maybe even land use data to pinpoint the best spots for wind farms.
That's a great example of using AI for sustainability, finding solutions to real-world problems. But of course, it's not all rosy. The presentation also touched on some of the limitations, and I have to admit that dog in the park summary made me laugh.
Oh yeah, the dog in the park. That was a perfect illustration of how even though AI is sophisticated, it can still misinterpret things and even just make stuff up.
It was like it got so caught up in trying to sound smart that it forgot to be accurate.
That's a great way to put it. And it just goes to show how important it is for humans to be involved, to use our judgment. We can't just blindly trust whatever AI spits out. We need to double-check it, look for inconsistencies, and separate what's real from what's made up.
And what about that economic summary? It seemed like ChatGPT totally misinterpreted some key data and came to the wrong conclusions.
That one really drove home the point that AI isn't a replacement for human experts. Not yet, anyway. It's a tool, a really powerful one, but we're still the ones who need to be steering the ship, so to speak.
Speaking of steering the ship, it's funny how something as seemingly basic as counting can trip these advanced language models up. The presentation mentioned how AI can struggle with things like even counting the number of eyes in artificial intelligence.
Right. It's a good reminder that while AI might excel in certain areas, it doesn't think the way we do. It doesn't have this built-in understanding of language or concepts. It learns by recognizing patterns in data. And sometimes those patterns can lead to some pretty wacky results.
It seems like this course is walking that tightrope, you know?
Yeah.
highlighting how awesome AI is, but also being realistic about its limitations.
Uh,
It's not just about teaching the technical stuff, but about helping people understand how to use these tools effectively, when to trust them, when to double check. It's like they're saying, hey, AI is powerful, but you're the boss.
exactly. It's about making sure people are smart about using AI,
Hmm.
not just, blindly following along.
Yeah, totally. So as you get ready for this course, what are you most hoping to get out of it? What specifically about AI and urban planning really makes you tick?
That's a good question to be thinking about as you dive into this whole world. It's easy to get swept up by shiny new tech, but having a clear goal and a critical eye is key.
Couldn't agree more. And it sounds like this course gives you the tools to do just that. It's not just the technical stuff, but also the big picture, right? Like the potential, the limitations, even the ethical side of things.
Exactly. It's about equipping people to make good decisions, not just be good at the technical stuff.
Mhm.
And that's a super important distinction now that AI is everywhere, especially in urban planning.
It sounds like this course is prepping you to be on the cutting edge of this whole AI revolution in urban planning. What are you most pumped about exploring in the course?
I'm really encouraged by this balanced approach to teaching people about AI. This course seems to be setting people up to not just use AI, but to really think critically about it and shape how it develops.
Well, you've got a really exciting journey ahead of you, and we hope this deep dive has given you a good foundation to build on. Remember, it's not just about the tech itself, but how we can use it to make things better for everyone. Best of luck with the course, and keep asking those tough questions.